Hi, in this video I'm going to demonstrate using Blender to sculpt a knight suitable for 3D printing. So I start off with a cube and then jump straight into edit mode and use the extrude tool to shape it roughly to the outline of the knight. You can see I'm using a reference picture in the background here. I'm not going to stick exactly to the reference, I'm just going to use it as a guide and interpret it to design my own piece. I'm using a combination of extruding faces and then moving vertices to roughly match the shape. Now I go to sculpt mode and use the simplify brush to convert the whole mesh to triangles. And now I'm using the smooth tool to just round out the corners. And then I use the grab tool with a very large fall off to reshape the proportions. This is the pinch tool, so to create sharper edges I use the pinch tool, and then to create these detailed lines I'm using the crease tool. So at the first stage I just roughly block out the shape and I don't worry about the resolution too much. The mesh resolution is still quite low. I'll add more resolution later on. Just hiding the nose of the horse so I can work on the neck without painting in the wrong areas. So here I'm using a combination of pinch and then smooth to sharpen up the edge and then blur it slightly. This is speeded up approximately 8 times. Again, this is the pinch brush, and then smooth. Now that scrape, that effect there was using the scrape brush. It's good for reducing bulges or bumps in the mesh. It flattens the area out. Here I'm adding in an eyebrow ridge. Just using the crease brush to roughly define the eye. This is just the normal draw brush. If you hold down Control, it pushes into the mesh instead of adding geometry on the top. So I use a mixture of the draw brush or the crease brush to create holes like the ear. I spent some time working on the mane here, but this was a waste of time because later on I decided to do an extruded mane using a curve. Now I noticed that the reference is a very elongated cheek area, so I pushed it back a bit, but I haven't followed it exactly. I decided to change the proportions of my piece a little. These indentations look better with a sharp edge, so I use the pinch tool to redefine the edge after I've drawn them in. Sometimes I turn the wireframe on just to check the resolution and see where the detail is. I like to just have the most detail on the areas where the mesh has been pinched to a sharp point, and on the smooth areas I use less detail. This is using the scrape tool, and then the move tool, or grab, to adjust the overall proportions. So now starting on the main, I'm going to loft a shape along a curve to make the geometry of the main, and then arrange the polygons so that I can cut the grooves easily. Here I'm trying to work out which point is the one on the top of the main. So I'm moving them around and watching the effect on the mesh to try and figure out which one is the top. And I finally figured it out, and so now I'm going to shape it into the correct cross-section. So this flat shape on the ground here is getting lofted along the spline along the back of the knight. And it's important to space the points evenly here because the polygons get distributed with the same spacing. There's the same number of polygons between each point, so in order to get the divisions in the main nice and neat, I try to arrange the points evenly. Here I'm resculpting the original mesh to match the new main. This is the next day. I decided to go back and do some more refinement on the face before completing the main. So I thought it looked a little unfinished here. It can be useful to change the material on the model to see details. I find if I want to check for the smoothness of a surface, then I use a more specular material with more shiny reflections. It's easier to spot imperfections. If I'm just sculpting the overall shape, then a matte material is easier to see the silhouette. This material is nice for looking at curves and judging how the light moves. This is another very specular material. Good for judging how the light travels over a surface, which lets you know if it's smooth or not. The knight is going to be on a pedestal and it's going to get joined into it, so I'm extruding the base down a little bit so that they connect nicely. Again, this is more using the scrape tool and then the blur tool to smooth out. You can just hold down shift on any tool to smooth the mesh. Okay, I'm coming back to the main again now, and I'm going to try selecting some rings of polygons and then extruding them inwards to see if I can get a nice shape. I decided I didn't quite like the spacing on that first try, and I tried again with closer spacing between the divisions. So I found this looked a bit better. I'm just cleaning up the end. Now I've turned the pedestal back on so I can correctly align the base and make sure that it's a nice even circle. I'm fixing the connection between the original model and the new main. I realized the eye wasn't a very good circle, so I decided to use a spline as a guide to create a more perfect circle. Right, now it's time to Boolean the pieces together, so I use a Boolean union to join all the pieces, the pedestal, the body and the main, into one mesh, and then check for flaws. So if you go to the 3D Print tab in Blender, you can search for intersecting faces or imperfections that won't print properly. It's highlighted these faces here as an error, so I'm just going to merge some of the vertices together to get rid of the flaw. So when you click on intersections, it tells you if there's any intersecting faces. Usually you'll find there's a lot of vertices nearby after a Boolean. You can just merge them together to clean it up. Now if you click this and it says 0 for bad edges or non-manifold edges, then your model is ready to print. 0 flaws means it's a contiguous mesh and it's going to be able to slice properly in your slicer. I make the pieces hollow on the inside so that I can add weights. So here I'm just doing a Boolean difference to cut out this little cone shape from the base. And this is where the weights will go. So now bringing it into Simplify 3D, I do a quick check. It says the model is manifold, so that means it's ready to print. There's no errors. Now obviously it needs some support under the nose because there's an overhang there. So I mark this area with support guides, and then I slice the mesh to see what kind of supports it will generate. So when I click Prepare for Print, it gives a preview of the supports. They're not quite covering all of the nose, so this needs a little modification. You can see part of the nose is overhanging with no supports underneath it. So just make a quick adjustment to add a bit more support in that area. That looks good now. Everything is supported. And that looks ready to print. Here's how it looks printed in bamboo PLA filament on the left, and on the right is red copper PLA filament. Thanks for watching, I hope you found this useful.